Hello and welcome to the Gallant Few Rangers podcast. My name's Colin and I'm delighted to be your host this evening as we try our very best to fill the Rangers-sized void in our lives as we're in the dreaded international break. So, but we're looking for a wee bit of support here. The listeners who are tuning in live on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter, get your questions in, please. It's a live Q&A. Here to hopefully bail me out and answer the hard questions for me. I've got a wonderful panel of three guests, and anything that's too difficult for me to answer, I'm going to put one of them on the spot. First of all, joining us from the continent, Davie T. How are you? Take yourself off mute, Davie. Wonderful start to the live pod.
Yeah, just after spending 5 minutes telling us to go into mute, and you should have told me to not forget to switch it off. No, thanks. Yeah, missing the football. Who the heck invented international weekends? It shouldn't be allowed. No, just missing the Rangers. Not enough content anywhere.
I know. Well, on the subject of content, you can now become a Gallant Few member for just £1 a month and get additional content every day, including a daily news show. So a nice wee plug there. We did have Chris Hampton, who has conveniently fucked off as soon as I mentioned that he's going to be getting some difficult questions for the listeners. But also joining us and making a trail tonight, Andy. How are you?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I don't know where Chris is going. I kind of see a couple of those kind of sub appearances at the Legends game. People just popping on to say hello and then fucking off to the bar somewhere. But I'm good, mate. I'm good, aye.
Good to have you on. Good to have you on. So, a call to arms for the listeners who are watching live. It's pretty much a blank canvas. It's unscripted. Get your questions in the comments. It could be to do with the Legends game this weekend, Rangers in general this season, the upcoming summer transfer window, or just football in general. Really, you guys ask it, and we'll work through as many as you can. So, I please as much as you can. Would be much appreciated. So, Davey, while we wait for the listeners' questions coming in, we today is the 28th anniversary of Davy Cooper passing away. So, also you were lucky enough to see Davy Cooper there, and like in the flesh. What was it? You know, what's this day mean to you, and what was it like seeing Davy Cooper?
Well, yeah, unfortunately, Davy Cooper was in a time when I had already moved abroad, so I didn't really see an awful lot of him. In the games I did see, I mean, he was one of the very last real dribblers of a ball. You don't sort of get players in these days that could dribble the way he could dribble. The ball control that he had. It's everything. I suppose it's all because now that everything's at high speed. Wingers have got to be more sprinters than real ball players. And Davy Cooper was one of the last ones. And I think one of the best things I can say about him is Ruud Gullit even had him in his best ever 11 players. So, I mean, that puts him quite high in my view, because I think Ruud Gullit played against some really good players. But no, Davy Cooper, and I think he'll always be remembered for the goal where he put the ball over about six Celtic players' heads and then put it into the net. So, but no, absolutely brilliant, great guy, and just what a shame he was taken away so early. Really terrible.
Aye, it is an absolute iconic goal, and as we were speaking about earlier on before we went live, the word legend is bandied about too much, but I think the impact that David Cooper's had for the Rangers fans who watched him and the generation that followed after, he's absolute Rangers royalty. Chris, I'll come to you on this. First of all, welcome back. The listeners they were disheartened to see you run away. But just on David Cooper, you would have been old enough to remember Davie Cooper final. It was around the anniversary. Was it maybe the 20th anniversary? And Rangers played Motherwell, and we really both clubs put on a display for them. That was such a special day, wasn't it?
Absolutely, mate. And unfortunately, I never got to see him play for Rangers. He'd left Rangers by the time I was born, but watching videos and stuff like that, the guy was just magic. That cup final was great as well. And a lot of people forget is Big Kiriago scored that cup final, which is a rarity.
Oh, I shuddered when you said that name there, Kiriakos. Jesus. But
Rangers and Liverpool legend.
Davie Heard saying he's never seen a more naturally skillful footballer than Davie Cooper. Privileged to see his Rangers career. And Andy, I'll come to you. Also, you're a wee bit younger than us, and it was you that mentioned about the whole idea of Rangers legend, but is the representative of the young team, like what's the name Davie Cooper mean to you?
Davie Cooper is what was the first word that comes to mind is legend. But to be honest, with the way the word legend is thrown about these days, I like to go with the kind of way that Football Manager categorises club information for legends and icons. Icons is probably a better bracket for him to go into, because if the club's going to have legends games where you've got Bruno Alves playing for Rangers, it's embarrassing, because I wouldn't have Alves and Cooper in a million years of, or a million brackets of skill. I know they're centre back and attacking, but there is no denying that the guy is a Rangers legend. He's an icon. I wouldn't even say legend to back up that kind of icons or legends debate. He goes straight into that icons category with your John Greggs and Walter, I'd say.
Aye, and I think it's the mark of the man how former managers and players do speak about him. Not just the talent on the pitch, but the character he was. And like Alan McCoy speaks wonderfully about him. I could listen to Alan McCoy's read out the Yellow Pages, to be fair. There's not much he'll say that I don't really enjoy, but he does gives such a good rendition of the stories and just how good a person Davie Cooper was as well. So really, living that Rangers way of life as well as on the park. So we've got our first question in, and again, listeners, get as many questions in as you can over the next hour, and we'll fire through as many as we can. Davie Tomlinson, I'll come to you first. So, D-Mac, guys, do you think we need one or two goalies? I'm two. So I'm guessing that D-Mac is saying he's all for two goalies and he's not 2 years of age. That'd be very impressive if he was on the live YouTube stream. But that is a very, very valid question, Davie. I think it's one we spoke about on the pod. All the podders have maybe had their tuppence worth in. How many keepers do you think we need in the summer?
Well, I think Rangers need to decide what they're going to do with Robbie McCrory. Are they going to keep him or give him a chance, or are they going to let him go? I think a decision needs to be made there. I personally never thought that he was good enough for the Rangers. Anytime I've seen him, anytime for the Rangers first team, although he did play the one game against Celtic, he did play quite good. But I would. McLaughlin for me is just not good enough for the first team anymore. The shambles he had in the last game he played, and he had one in the beginning of the season that was a shambles as well. So he just falls away for me, and there's no point in keeping a second or a third goalkeeper that's going to be a shambles if he gets his chance. So we definitely need to get rid of McLaughlin. So if you want three goalkeepers, then we need two in front of Robbie McCrory. So McCrory would keep the third place, and we need two goalkeepers in front of him. And then John McLaughlin, we need to replace him because he's just proved that he can't do it. He's not up to the job.
Chris, I'll come to you next on the goalkeeping situation. I don't think MD will disagree that we need at least one goalkeeper, but the question being, do we need two? For me, I'm torn. I don't know if John McLaughlin is worthwhile keeping around as a number 2 and trying to feed Robbie McCrory into maybe more cup games. I do rate Robbie McCrory. Obviously, his injury's been unfortunate. So, do we keep John McLaughlin as a challenging number 2, a 2.5, if you like, and Robbie McCrory coming in? Having said that, is that a lot of wages for somebody who's not got to play at all? What's your thoughts?
To be honest, mate, I wouldn't want to see McLaughlin and the Rangers go again. The last games was at Ross County, at Ibrox, and Kilmarnock away, where he's obviously been out the team for a wee while. It's his chance to come back in, claim his spot. I thought he had a disaster and sold 2 goals in the games. I wouldn't trust him to do the dishes. Do you know what I mean? Hands under that safe. For me, it's 2 new goalkeepers. And McCrory, he needs to get a chance. At the same time, is there a reason we've not forward now until obviously he's been injured, but he'll, if you get me.
I think you broke up a wee bit there, but I think we get the point where it's is there a reason if he is that hyped up in the youth system and thought so highly of at Rangers, why have we not seen more of him? I think that is a good point. And we're very much fixating on John McLaughlin here, but I think there is a question mark over Alan McGregor. I think the majority of the fans do think Alan McGregor will be done. But the more you see Alan McGregor, the older he gets, the angrier he becomes and the more competitive he becomes. And also sometimes he is old man shouting at clouds, but I think there is that competitive edge. Do you see him wanting to hang up gloves?
I think there's only really one person that knows the answer to that. I think it's Alan McGregor. I think he needs to have a proper conversation, just a proper chat with himself. Maybe speak to the manager, speak to other guys, and they've been there. That he knows, and talking to, maybe not for goalkeepers, but guys that have been there maybe a wee bit too long, and get a wider perspective, not just on the Rangers mad goalie that we know him as. Personally, I think it would be a good time to call it a day. I think you could make the argument that this season was one season too many, to be honest. It's tough because Alan is in his day is a great keeper. It's just I don't know if that day has gone by now. There's been times this season where we've conceded a goal and it's been McGregor shouting at a centre back, but then you look back in the replay and you go, could they have came out? Could they have done more? And I know I don't want to stick the sword into a guy who's a great servant for the club. Before he left and coming back, being part of the 55 season, he rightfully deserved that 55 title. As I think that would have been the perfect send off. Not that he had to retire then, but that would have been the crowning the crowning achievement in his career. But now since we've had a poor season, it's kind of going to leave it on a sour note, which is a sad thing to say because he was so good. You know, you think of a handful of moments, Sporting Lisbon, you know, Werder Bremen, pardon me, not Sporting Lisbon. Countless saves and Old Firm penalty saves, you know. My favourite one was in the 55 season where Griffiths hits a shot from outside the box. He gets a fingertip onto the post that goes out, and he goes, I didn't touch it. It's not a corner. I didn't touch it, even though he's made a superb save. But yeah, Alan has to have a word with himself. I think the goalkeeper question has been a question that we've kind of pushed away for the last few years, and I think that's another shameful moment for Ross Wilson, because we should have had plans in place. We should have been keeping an eye on people. And we did a bit last season, but then we threw it away and said, I'll come back another year. So it'll be interesting to see what we actually do now that the time is now to make a decision, in my opinion, and not just leave it.
It's the most it's very it's very Rangers-esque right now to leave these decisions right to the last minute, as we've seen with the squads. Davie, you want to come in there?
Yeah, one of the other things I was just thinking about McGregor was I can't remember what game it was now, but we had a narrow lead, and McGregor had hardly touched the ball all game, and he went down for cramp to waste time. I thought that was quite funny. That was one of the memories that McGregor will stay with me. But no, I mean McGregor's been a great man for the club, and he's done absolutely brilliant. Whether you could possibly keep him as third goalkeeper if we're not going to stay with Robbie McCrory, then I would be all for that. If he wanted to stay on as third keeper, because it's going to be quite difficult to get two. I mean, you're looking for two top class goalkeepers, and as a top class goalkeeper going to be happy taking second fiddle, that's the way you're going to bring in two keepers and say, yeah, you've got to fight each other for the place. It's going to be difficult.
Aye, and that's a big part of the frustration the rebuild needed, that we've allowed too much to be done in the one season. We've got far too much, and we can't bring in 12 players in this summer and get 12 players out. It's no Football Manager. It won't work like that, but we should never have been in this position in the first place. So thanks to D-Mac for kicking us off with that question. Chris, I'm going to come to you first for the next one. So a Gallant Few member and subscriber, regular listener Teddy Bell, he's asking, will we be a better team without Kent next season? Teddy Bear thinks yes. I'll put my cards on the table. I'm a big Ryan Kent fan. I don't think we are a better team without Ryan Kent next season. What's your thoughts on it? Live podcasting, folks, that's show business. I don't think Chris is having the best connections tonight. You're on mute, Chris. Andy, I'll come to you for kicking us off with the Kent question, mate. I'll be a better team next season without Ryan Kent.
I'm the same as you, mate. I like Ryan Kent. I've always liked Ryan Kent. You just seem like that English Prem kind of youth squad kind of winger you get from that kind of Liverpool youth team, where it was the kind of the long sleeve, the gloves, and the step overs. It just seemed like he was unbeatable at times. And especially in that loan spell, they say don't fall in love with loan players. But he was brilliant in that time. But in that the kind of European resurgence, going into that Europa League campaign, I can remember. I can remember like it was 8 years or 80 years ago, 50 years ago. It was like 6 years ago. Rapid Vienna at home, and he took the ball. He was wearing number 26 that day because it was the season he just came in. He wasn't even 14. He didn't have the kit number 14 because it was Europe. And two Rapid players came in, pressured him instantly, and he flicked the ball through the middle of them and jumped through the gap. And it was something that it just seemed like this guy had all the confidence in the world. You flash forward to now, and sometimes you see flashes of that Kent, and on that, when he is in that mode, he is unstoppable. I mean, I can't remember, it might have been Chris who said after the cup final at my first podcast, he said even some of the Celtic fans that he knows hate Ryan Kent. They have a fear for him. And I know my school pals were the same. They went, Kent, he's tricky, But it's again, for the new contract thing, I said it with Morelos in another podcast a few weeks back. I said, you're paying for the idea of that Kent because you might not get that Kent. That's the difference. I love the guy, and sometimes you get a goal at Ibrox against Celtic where he cuts in and he puts it in that far corner, or sometimes he kind of hit water if he fell out of a boat. The ball could either end in the top corner, it'll go into G or F behind the goal. So it's the question is all this time itself: will the Rangers players be consistent? Consistency has been their issues all throughout the team, and Kent's just one of the players that gets tarred with that brush because he does go from being a 9 out of 10 player to a 6 with 1 week past, and it's perplexing.
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. It's not a talent issue with Ryan Kent, it is a consistency. And there's a few folk in the comments calling it his contribution, and I do sometimes try and defend him, and it doesn't excuse his it doesn't excuse his lack of goal contributions and assists. He absolutely, as a forward player, has to be involved in more goals. But I think nobody recognises the work he does off the ball and just keeping the shape. And I know effort and running is like a bare minimum, but he is very important as an out ball and getting us up the pitch.
Yeah, I like to be a kind of stat guy, but the one thing I don't have is the amount of out balls that go to Kent, because he is so pivotal in the way we attack. Even just you could say that the ball could go from the left side of the pitch to the right side of the pitch, and he'll take 4 or 5 passes. Kent will just take the ball and do it himself. There's no issue in give him the ball and he'll do something. Because everyone seems to do it. Everyone gives him the ball to Kent, either out wide. He's coming through the middle in the kind of 2 strikers in a cam position, which is an interesting one. The thing for next season, if we don't go with Kent, first of all, that's a massive loss for the amount of money we spent on him. And secondly, it looks like that role that Kent has been forced to play now will be the norm for next season. And who's going to fill that gap? Are we going to bring in somebody that can play that way? Are we going to move somebody from another position to play that way? Could it be Cantwell potentially? It's a question that Michael's going to have to figure out. But I'd like to see him stay next season, just for the sheer fact that if we make a £7 million loss, then it's indefensible.
Davie, I'll bring you in. I think there's a few comments for and against keeping Ryan Kent, and again, I'm firmly I do want to keep him. I think he is one of the more talented players. What I do think is we need competition in that space, because that's been 3-4 years. There's not been any real competitor for him, and when he's having an off game, nobody replaces him of the same effect. But even that, if somebody just push him to be at his best, I think that is a priority. Where do you sit in the Ryan Kent question?
Well, Ryan Kent is a conundrum, isn't it? Whether, as you say, he's good one week and the next week. But the thing that I think you've got to judge them on is his goals and his assists are very, very poor. And it's okay doing step overs and all that kind of thing in the middle of the park. But if you're not adding to the team by scoring goals and giving assists, then you're not really doing the work that you're brought in to do. Actually, funnily enough, the last few weeks he's actually been playing a bit deeper, and I would quite actually like to see him as a wing back. I wonder if he could actually play that position. So between now and the end of the season, I might like to see him in that position, but I don't think he brings enough to the tally, which is putting an awful lot of pressure on your centre forward, and well, probably Tillman as well, or the number 10, to score goals, because you know Kent's not going to do it. And at a certain level, I mean, okay, it takes two people to guard them. But at a certain level, you're just going to say, "Oh, let him shoot," because it's going to end up in row Z, or a flag past the post, hit the corner flag. You don't know. I mean, the only person that's got to get out the road if Ryan Kent shoots, that doesn't have to go out the road is the keeper, because the keeper knows he's safe. So it's no. I think he's a really great player on his day, running and beating players and doing step overs and all the fancy stuff. But what we need is goals and assists, and he doesn't produce that. So I'm afraid I would be, or try him at wing back, or let him go.
Well, on the subject of wingback, it's as if we've scripted this. The next question, I'm going to stick with you, Davie. Give you the first crack at this one. Friend of the show, David Herd. Oh, by the way, I've heard a rumour David Herd is going to come on and do his best 11. I'm looking forward to that, seeing what he's got up his sleeve for Mason. But David Herd, he's asked, is Yilmaz good enough? He's not convinced. So, Davie T, what's your thoughts on that question? Is Yilmaz good enough to be the first choice left back?
Well, I don't think we've seen enough of him yet to really judge him, because he's only played a couple of games. The games I've seen, I was the game before he was injured. I was quite positive about him, but with the goal at the weekend where the ball went down inside him, I don't know if you can totally blame him because I think Connor Golson was a bit late in stepping out. But yeah, he sort of just ran away and left his position, didn't he? So I sort of blame him a wee bit for that. But I haven't really seen enough of him yet. I seen what I did see that he's forward passing. He's got an eye for a good forward pass. I think if he gets in the team, gets some games, then I think he could be a good player. His lack of height worries me a bit because I think balls at the back post are going to be pretty dodgy, and we are already dodgy with corners, and so I'm pretty dodgy about that. I mean, I did see him once jump quite high, but obviously he was targeted by I can't remember, was it Aberdeen that targeted him or some one team targeted him and just kept putting high balls over to that side of the park.
Motherwell.
Was it Motherwell? And so I think teams will target him for that. I think he runs in an advanced position, so I think teams will try to get the ball behind him, which is probably also a job for Davies. But that was I mean, really, Yilmaz and Davies should have really cut out that ball at the weekend against Motherwell for I think it's first goal. They should have between them. They should have cut out that ball. Yeah, you can't just go blind on trying to play offside when there's midfielders going to come through as well. So it's a really dangerous position, and we'll probably lose more goals if we're going to play like that. I know we do try to play high line, and I mean it's really the way we want to play is get the ball in the other team's half, but there will be chances the other team will get by playing so a high line. But Yilmaz undecided. He's not playing. I've not seen him enough to make a big decision on him.
Such a politician, undecided. Andy, I'll bring you in on this. I can see why David Hale's asked the question because I think it was his first start was against Kilmarnock. Van Bronckhorst rested Barisic for the PSV game, and Yilmaz he looked very forward thinking, but there was a couple of times he probably made a few naive runs, I would say. And I think you maybe seen that against Motherwell as well. What I would say, I think he's a completely different type of fullback for Barisic. I'm of the opinion that it's wait and see, and I don't think there's very many people writing him off. I think there's far too many people saying he's going to be a superstar. But and Abby's done with that before. I thought Jeremy Clement was going to be the next Rangers captain, and look how that turned out. So, what's your thoughts on Yilmaz? Too soon to tell, or is he good enough?
Well, I just checked. I was just checking quickly. I've got it as 7 games or 7 games / sub appearances and a couple Champions League sub appearances as well, which the less said about the Champions League, the better. The guy's 21. I want the same age as me. I just turned that the weekend there. Where our other left back is 30 years old. You know, it's a whole different ball game between Borna and Yilmaz. I like both of them. I think I like Borna. I've always liked Borna. I know he got a lot of stick at times in his Rangers career, but I've always stuck by him. Whether that's because his dad might kneecap me or not, I don't know. But Ridvan, I think, is a kind of a new talent. I mean, he's highly sought of from the Turkish perspective. I'm not going to say I watched the Turkish Super League. I think it is. I watched it before he left Bundesliga to come to Rangers, but I remember a lot of people saying, you know, he's doing really well for the under 20s. He came through the under 20s, the under 17s, and he made a couple of appearances for the senior squad for Turkey. And you don't do that if you're just really no talent, you know. I think he is something. And Besiktas is an all right level. It's not like we've picked from the English Championship where we like to do things like that. And I'm actually a big fan of those kind of 2 deals, bringing Borna in from Croatia, the Croatian league, and Ridvan from Turkey. I think that's 2 kind of well scouted signings. I think I have to praise the signings there. I think Ridvan has a high upside and can be a star for us, but we need to keep him level. We need to just get him involved where we can now, because we're in that unique situation where Borna has been a starter for the last, how many years has it been? But he's been there. He was in 55. He scored goals, free kicks. He's on the set pieces. Borna is a big part of the way we play, and to just switch him out, it will take some time definitely to get him involved to the best of his abilities.
In all things being fair, Barisic has had a decent run since November. I don't think we can dispute that.
Brilliant.
And I've always been a big fan of him, but I heavily criticised him at the beginning of the season, and in my opinion, rightly so. But he's been decent.
Yeah, I mean, he has. It's not this. It's obvious he has his critics. Like half of them sit behind me at Ibrox, but yeah, he has moments. I think he's going to get tired with the Celtic Park. You know, that back post ball. Abada has him in his back pocket. That entire game, I think, anytime that cross ball came in, I was worried because he doesn't catch that blindside run at all. You could argue why does the ball get there, but it doesn't look good either way. And he's had a couple of really bad showings that's going to leave scars to his Rangers career. And I think when there is those massive games where he's made a big mistake, then he's going to get criticised for it.
Yep, thank you for Davie Heard for that question. Very quick one, I'll answer this question. Robert Robertson has Chris called fuck it on tonight's pod. Yes, he has. He's having a wee bit of connection and technology issues, so Chris will be back with you next Thursday, no doubt. Hopefully with a better connection. Davie, I'll circle back to you for the next question, mate.
Colin, see before you go on, can I just stay, because it's still a wee bit over Kent and Barisic still. I wonder if you didn't have Kent in the team, if Barisic would have been so attacking, because Kent does cover up a lot for Barisic to let Barisic get forward, and that's just another thing I thought about there.
I think you're right. See, we Kent the wing back. I don't see, when you mentioned that got me thinking. I don't see Kent and Yilmaz in the same team. I see Yilmaz as a wing back if we play three at the back.
Yeah, that's possible. There's just one thing leads to another. I mean, if you look at the assists Borna Barisic has had, he's had some amount of assists, and there's nobody got a better left foot for crossing a ball than him. But it's the ball that's his danger ball. Let's put it that way: is a ball inside him, down into the corner of the 16-yard box. That's his sort of a bad spot. That's where he gets picked out a lot. But no, sorry, that just entered my head.
No, you're all good. So, next question we've got is from Nicholas Moore. In fact, Andy, I'll let you have a crack at this one first, with Davie last time. So, what do you think of the rumours that Rangers will sign Nottingham Forest player Ponzo? So, for anybody who didn't listen to the Daily News show this morning, why not? £1 a month. Subscribe now, folks. I covered off the story that we're looking at Nottingham Forest centre half Ponzo. He's a left-sided defender, currently on loan to Coventry City in the Championship, having a very good season by all accounts. Personally, I think Nottingham Forest would want a few million for him. If they did want another loan, I don't really see Michael Beale to invest in the loan market for key players. Andrew, what's your thoughts on it?
Well, I think for this kind of player, I think if we're going to make an investment in them, then we need to be sure about it. Because we have, again, the way you said about the loans, I don't think that works. We've had hit or miss from that kind of region. To come to mind, Joe Worrell, who Nottingham Forest, again, he's having a clear resurgence. I think everyone thought he was shite when he played for us, but yeah, there you go. He's making a career at Nottingham Forest in the Prem. Then you've got others like George Edmondson, who just didn't have it. So I think we need to be certain if it's something we want to do. and we're going to be complete and upfront and say it's a player we're going to develop, then we need to say this public so we know that he has time. It's not gonna. You're not gonna. I think I seen somewhere that was £3 million. You're not gonna get a centre back from England for £3 million. It's the whole package at his age, and I think that's the only issue I have with it, is that I think our support struggles to give players time, especially in those kind of younger guys, especially in that defence. You know, the defence is one of the most eyes on scrutinised areas. Tav gets it, Goldson's getting it, Barisic gets it. I like Ben Davies. I think he was a great signing. So I think if you're going to have Davies and Panzo, I think that could be a good kind of rotational partnership on that left side. I like him personally. From what I've seen, he's left-footed. You know, he's good in the air. He can play left back for cover reasons. I think as long as we're certain that we're under no illusions that it's not going to be a straight in the squad and he's going to be a star, he needs time to bed in.
Just kind of going off the topic of the question, a shout out to Cammy, who's been a massive supporter for the pod, and he's really supporting us with the subscriptions and the We Donation there. Thank you. And there was another couple of people asking what are the podcast memberships. Basically, for wherever you're listening, you can either join as a member on YouTube. Or if you listen on Spotify or Apple, you can sign up to Acast or Anchor, and basically it's £1 a month, and you get all the additional content. So we do a daily news show Monday to Friday. I'm up with the Sparrows before work, reading the Daily Record, so you don't need to entertain it. I'll give you all the headlines, even the nonsense ones, and obviously there's 1 or 2 additional shows a week per week for members. The last couple of weeks we've had Chris's best 11s, my 10 questions, and an interview with Maurice Ross as well. But we do really appreciate all the support you guys give us. It does go a long way. Ultimately, we'll try to get as much access to Rangers players and Ibrox as possible. I was back in the press room last Friday, hoping to be back in on Sunday. So, Davie, I'll come to you on the Ponzo rumours. For me, I don't really see much in it, and I'm no too disheartened if it doesn't happen. There's mixed reviews on Ben Davies in the comments. I do like Ben Davies, but I think we do need a bit of cover in the left side centre half. I prefer the idea of Jake Cooper. I'm not going to say Jake Cooper's a fantastic centre half, but he's got that characteristics that we lack in the team, and that characteristics. The technical term is he's a big bad bastard, and I don't think we have enough of that. What's your thoughts on these rumours of Ponzo?
Well, I'm afraid I'm not up into the English leagues enough to know. I hadn't heard his name until about 2 hours ago, so I can't really judge on what he's like. I think we do need to fill that position. I do think we need at least one more centre back, because it's one gets injured, then we're dependent on an 18-year-old boy again. So I don't think King is totally ready yet. I think we've seen that. So I think we do need an older head. It's 22, an older head. Well, it's a lot more experience than somebody of 18. So I think we do need to bring in somebody, and then slowly bring King in. Hopefully King will be a brilliant player in the future. But it's just the step up is really big. But I don't know the boys, so I can't judge. I said I only heard his name about 2 hours ago, and when I was looking up and some Rangers things to talk about tonight, but no, I don't know. So sorry, I can't help you in that one.
No, and a couple of folk in the comments calling out Hilander. It's a sign that he's grown. Hilander's contract is up in the summer, and I don't know. I think there's more chance of me playing at centre half for Rangers next season than Philip Hilander. It's a shame because long-term listeners know I was a big Phil fanboy, but these things don't work out. It must be the Colin McDuff kiss of death, man. Every time I back up player, something happens. Davie, I'm going to stick with you for the next question first. This is from one of our very own podders, a bit of famous character in the Rangers YouTube scene, Curry Muncher. So he's asking, what 3 players would you like to spend the night with for dinner and a bevy sesh? You can't pick Gaza, McCoist, or Walter. Who would you go with?
Oh, I think yeah, probably the ones I'm going to mention that I would like to are bevy merchants. Was Jim Baxter. I'd love to have been in his company. Probably wouldn't have been home sober. That's that would be the negative side to that. Andy Gorham is another that I would really love to have been in his company, because I think when I was younger, I wasn't too bad a goalkeeper as well. I just hated playing in goals. So I think as a goalkeeper, and I think he was Rangers' best goalkeeper that I've seen. Even although his size, you just wouldn't believe that he was a top class goalkeeper. I think that's 2, and well, yeah, I'm going to give another 2, because one I've actually had a drink with is Dave Smith. Dave Smith, I met him in Luxembourg. He's a really great guy. So I actually had a drink with him. And the other one would be Colin Steen. And I could go through them all. Actually, that I would love to have a drink with Colin Steen, Tom Forsyth. I love that. That's all my favourite players. So I was going to do a top 11 with you sometime. So I'm sort of naming them all off now.
I know, and it's just exclusive insight into that top 11. Andy, what about yourself? What players would you take out for a wine and dine?
I was thinking of it because it was a really great question. I was honestly thinking, first of all, the one that came to mind is completely wrong given the quote he said. His dad Purcell. He was just as I was growing up. I was instilled with the Dado was my favourite. I remember one of my first Rangers tops I have, and it must have been just as I was getting into Rangers or going to games. I don't have many memories of him playing, but looking back at highlights, I knew there was a reason why I had Purcell 9 in the back of my top. But I always remember the quote he said, it was a champagne is for women, real men drink milk. So he wouldn't be a brilliant drinker on that night, but he would be a great guy to just pick the brains off. He was a mad bastard. Winning headers with bandages, be strapped up and still going for the big head on guys. Who else? I'd just love to sit down and have just a meal with Stephen Davis. He's my hero. He was always just a guy I liked to. I never played a lot of football, but when I did, I wasn't skillful enough to be a winger. I wasn't very good in goals. I wasn't hard enough to play centre back. But I could pass the ball, and I kind of always liked to play the way Stephen Davis played in the midfield. He's just a great guy, just a great gent, he signed one of my tops this year, and I was fanboy, and I was checking my arm and I had goosebumps. I'm still a big kid. A third one is a tough one. A third one, there you go. Definitely a boozer, probably Barry Ferguson. Again, we don't need to talk about his issues with alcohol or certain Scotland events with Alan McGregor. But Barry was just another mad Rangers man, bastard in the midfield. From my time period and before that, he was just a great player, a great talented youngster coming through the team. Rangers captain. I just remember him as the captain when Wilder came back after Le Guen, which was just as I was getting into it, and he was the captain, so it was hard not to get behind the guy who supported the club from my age at the time. So yeah, hard not to like Barry for someone my age. I can understand looking back, especially in the press now, he's a bit of a pain in the arse, but I'll go and cheer him at the Legends game. I still love him. Love Fergie.
It's very, like, when we all talk about our earliest memories and first Rangers players we fall in love with, I felt like Barry Ferguson left me when he left Rangers. That's how much I loved him. But like coming back and winning the trophy and winning that treble, I despise him as a pundit, man. We spoke about that time and time again on the pods, but what he done as a player, you can't deny that. But I was hanging about my three when you guys were talking. I've kind of split it. I'm a bit of Rangers history buff, man. Like I've read both Davie Hale's books, and I love looking back into the archives, and I'd probably go 2 separate nights out, like for actually just talk about different periods in Rangers history. Mine would maybe be Richard Gough, John Gregg, and Tiger Jock Shaw. Choose the iconic. Incidentally, they're all centre halves there, but just the iconic Rangers captains. Just for like in 3 iconic eras. I'd love to hear the differences. But if I'm going for a night out up that Turkey Hall Street, I'm probably. I mean, Claudio Caniggia has to go up there, man. He was a mad bastard. And again, I love the guy, Davy Robertson too, and the goalie Andy Gorham. I actually managed to get a pint with Andy Gorham when Rangers played Rapid Vienna. It was in 2017. Basically met up, friend of a friend met up, and Bobby knew McCroy, so he flew over to Vienna. No, McCroy's Gorham with him. So I was there just having a pint with Andy Gorham. Like, this is mental. And I reminded him of a story. I said, you used to manage the Quarry Bar in Rutherglen, and I grew up across the road for it. I was like, you fucker, you didn't serve me when I tried to get in. He's like, were you underage? I was like, I was 15, but I looked older. He's like, he just grabbed a pint off the bar there. Take that, shut the fuck up and get on with it. So that was me told after the keeper. Brilliant. So really good question for Curry there, and some brilliant answers coming through. And
I saw another name appearing there, Colin, Ian Durant. That's another name that I would. I mean, that was he would have been one of the best players in the world at that time, and unfortunately, yeah, some basket up at Aberdeen decided that he wouldn't be.
I know. But he's fully the part of Ian Durant. He would be a good one as well.
Did you not get slagged by? Was it no a running gag that you get slagged by Walter and Ali because of his intern Rangers coach game? I think he played. Was it? It was just after Le Guin get sacked or something.
The Kilmarnock game, we got beat 3-2.
I think I remember. Was it Ali that said it somewhere? But they would never let him live it down. That you fucked that up, mate. I just love that the banter that goes in that. And I have to say, Curry's question, it was smart to take out McCoy to Walter, you know, because it's hard not to just. I know he's a bit of an arse sometimes in the commentary and stuff like that, but I love Cloyster personally. He's somebody that I could just sit and shoot the breeze with. I know he's well before my time, but it just seems like he's just one of us, you know. He just feels like that's a Rangers man I could just shoot the breeze with. So.
Totally agree. You could listen to him all day. I say that at the start of the pod, man. It's just you could read out the yellow pages and you'd be fucking captivated. So you would, or maybe that's just my attention span. Who knows? Next question, Davey. I'm going to come to you first. It is from D-Mac again, and he's calling out Kamara, Arfield, and Davis. So moving on. Do you think we need to bring in one or more midfielders? He loves Hadji, but he has his doubts. He'll hold down a starting spot with Rashton and Campbell being on fire. So, I think, personally, this is my biggest worry going into the summer, the rebuild that we need in the middle of the park. Arfield, Davis and Jack are all up, all out of contract in the summer. I don't expect all 3 of them to re-sign. I think maybe one of the 3. Don't know what happens with Glenn Kamara. I'd like to think he moves on. So I think we need more than one midfielder. I see Hadji playing further up, but I think we're looking at least 2 midfielders in the engine room. What's your thoughts?
Well, I actually heard a rumour today from one of the websites. I don't know where it was that Galatasaray were interested in Hadji, but you hear things like that from Turkey all the time. I said it in the last pod, and you probably know where I'm going to go. I think we want to better the midfield. And for me, the one I certainly would give Jack his place. No, Kamara for me just wants to go himself, so he'll go. Davies has had his last dawn, I think. So I think he'll be away. I would give Jack an extension for a year at least. Well, starting with a year, and I'm afraid I would love somebody to come in and Lundstrom to be sold and hopefully get some money for him and bring in an improvement in Lundstrom. I think that's just the way I would go. So if we're going to get rid of all the midfielders, we're probably going to have at least need two to bring in, and yeah, that's my opinion on it.
So a sub question to the question then, based on your answer, and I know you've never been a long term admirer of John Lundstrom. We've spoken about it many a time, you and I, on this pod. If we were to move on, for example, Davis, Arfield, and Kamara, can we afford to lose another one for the midfield and going? No, afford to, but can we realistically move another one in and then replace all of them? Because I think keeping Lundstrom, we need at least two midfielders. We move him on, we need a third one in. I'll be backing ourselves into a corner with that.
No, I'll be honest with you. I would rather keep Arfield for another year than keep Lundstrom, because Arfield coming off the bank, sorry, going to be a bit Dutch now. Coming off the bench is for me quite a danger, far more than what Lundstrom is. Lundstrom is more a danger to Rangers than he is to the opposition. So I would rather have Arfield kept and give him a year. And Jack, as I said before in the pod, Jack, on his day, Jack's the best midfielder we've got. So I definitely, hopefully, hope that his injury problems are going to get sorted out. They said the last operation that he got that it should help. So hopefully he'll get past his injury problems and we can get a good year out of him. But I would definitely keep Jack. That's as I say, I think he's the best midfielder we've got on his day.
Andy, a mixture of opinions coming through in the comments, and I think that highlights really like all the different combinations we could keep and sell. Highlights the size of the problem we've got. Personally, I would move on Davis and Arfield. I think Steve Davis is fantastic servant to Rangers, but I don't think he's going to come back the same player. And it sounds brutal, but we do need players to consistently add value to the squad. Arfield, I think he can have an impact off the bench, but I think we need players to have more of an impact further than 20 minutes. So for me, I would look to move on Kamara, try and get a bit of money back, keep Jack and Lundstrom, Ration and Camwell, and add the two in. But where do you fall on this one?
Yeah, I'll start with Stevie Davis. At Father Time, I think, has got some. As much as it pains me to say it, because even like the 55 season, it looked like you were still getting that 24, 25, 3-year-old. You know, he didn't look that far off where he was. I know when he first came back on the loan spell, he looked a wee bit shaky at the start, but he then grew back into the Stephen Davis that we knew and loved. But I think you're maybe starting to question, Alpha, big injury. Stevie, you've got a wife, you've got kids. What do you think? He needs to have it again. Same with McGregor. I think he needs to look inside himself and say, right, what do we think? He would speak to his family. You know, I think that's a main one for him as well. I think out of the three, I can see him definitely. I can see him least chance of coming back. Arfield, I liked Arfield off the bench. It's a shame that he's went from being a good kind of starter to being now a bench player, but you need to have depth in the team. You know, those bastards across the city, you know, they can afford to bring on somebody off the bench that you go, fuck, how's starting for them, you know? They spend a lot of money. Obviously, that's what happens when you spend a lot of money, is you get a lot of players in your squad that maybe don't even get in your squad to sit on the bench. I think they spent a nice amount of money on Haksabanovic from to sit on the bench for half the time. But the thing is, he comes off the bench and he scores fucking goals. That's the difference. You know, And that's the thing I have to say with Arfield is I know he comes off the bench, but like he won his Aberdeen at Pittodrie this season. You know, he comes off the bench, and without that, we don't win that game. It's hard. It's the same way I think with Scott Wright. Is that Scott Wright seems to be better off the bench. You give him a start, and he doesn't grasp the chance. And it's such a weird in that 20 minutes. I don't know if it's because the opposition are tired. Maybe they're hemmed in too much and they don't track him. I don't know. It's a solid professional. But I'd say I can see us if we're going to be hungrier and try and clear Deadwood, if you want to call it Deadwood, then I could see him going. And to be honest, Kamara, I don't know what's happening to Glenn Kamara. I think we left Glenn Kamara in the away leg. Well, no, I think he left. We left him at the Ibrox after the Leipzig game, or maybe he got lost in Seville. I don't know. I've not seen that Glenn Kamara all season. You could read a script of what Glenn Kamara does when he gets the ball. He gets the ball, knocks it a wee bit further away for their man coming into him, circles back, gives it to whoever's at left back, and jogs back to the middle of the park. And it's just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. He does nothing different. He doesn't take on anybody. This season at least, he hasn't taken on it. I don't know what's happened to Glenn Kamara. To think all the teams that were linked with him, how much money they were saying that we hope to get for him, comparing it to this season. The only good thing is they're probably not going to make a loss on him, given the fact we spent 50 grand on him. And that's what annoys me about Kent, is that we spent 7 million on him. And you can say it's in installments, whatever. It's still £7 million for a club that was in administration. That is a lot of money. And we can't just push it aside as, it's fine, we'll get by, it doesn't matter. It's a lot of money, especially when we have our brushes with financial fair play. We need to be wiser with this kind of thing. And it's so frustrating that we had so many. Morelos was such an asset. Kamara was an asset, you know. But even Bournemouth once was like with Roma for some reason. And you're thinking, great, we get loads of sellable assets. And then you get rid of Bass, you get Rebo, and you're going, right, who else is going to make profit on here? And I can see that the issue is, you know, we don't like Lundstrom. Well, I like him. I know David doesn't like Lundstrom, but he was a free transfer. That's the market that we hit. We hit free transfers. And it's so frustrating. But our hands are tied in these kind of situations.
You've kind of righted all the wrongs of old football there, and but no, you make a few decent points, and maybe if we're being honest, with the size of the rebuild that we need, maybe if there is an offer for John Lundstrom with the financial fair play, maybe we do need to entertain it, as much as it pains me. I've long-term listeners know I've been a big defender of him, but maybe if that's the case, if we do need to add funds to the rebuild for the financial fair play, Lundstrom, Kamara go. I take your point about Arfield coming off the bench and contributing, and Scott Wright as well. My issue right now is we've got too many Nacho Novos. Nacho Novo was a great squad player. He couldn't start, and I think a squad needs players who can come on and impact off the bench, but we've got too many players who, for whatever reason, can't impact over 90 minutes. Kemar Roof has never got to play 90 minutes, realistically, but he's still in the wage bill. We've got Scott Wright, we've got Scott Arfield. John Suter remains to be seen as well. So I think there's too many of them right now. But I think we'll see what happens in the summer. We're going to start wrapping it up, gents, and we have one last question we're going to come to. We'll finish it in a wee bit of a giggle. So, Davie and Andy, I'm going to ask you to give your goodbyes to the listeners and finish off with the last question. I'll start with you, Davie. Thanks for coming on. What is the most pissed you've ever been at a Rangers game or watching Rangers abroad? Don't get yourself to jail with this answer.
I don't really think I've been that drunk at a Rangers game. I know I was absolutely a Dortmund game. I went to see a few Dortmund games where I was an hour and a half on a bus before we got to the stadium, and you had to walk over the crates of beer to get to your seat. So I remember that, but I don't think I've ever been really drunk at a Rangers game. So I think I'll put my hands up to that one and say I've never been. The other thing I was going to say is about Scott Wright being on the bench or coming off the bench. Well, I think he really should, but the only thing is, I don't think it should be Ibrox. So that's I don't know where we get any money for him, but I suppose as they used to say, 20 pence and a packet of Chivas, a packet of cigarettes.
Aye.
Yeah, Chivas Regal wouldn't be cigarettes, of course, but no, that's my. But I don't think I've ever been pissed at a Rangers game. I really don't. I can't ever remember being real drunk at a Rangers game. So I mostly came from house, and I could just nick across in the ferry. And I left Scotland when I was about 22. So yeah, I wasn't really at the stage of getting stumped out my head for going to football games. But no, don't certainly. As I say, the Dortmund games I was, but no, that's sort of the only games I can think of that I've done it.
Well, we need to get you over.
Yeah,
No.
well, there's always a first time, I suppose.
But thanks for coming on, Davie.
It's a waste of it. It's really a waste of the game, going to a game and getting really watered out.
I had my season ticket through the third division. That wasn't a waste. I much rather no watching the game or no being coherent than actually having to suffer the severity of it. But as always, Davie, a pleasure having you on, my man.
I know, Colin. Just to do when I played amateur football, we used to. I was playing at a lower level, and we always used to say, "Right, we'll go and watch the first team at 2:00." And then when 2:00 came, we say, "Well, we'll miss the first 20 minutes," and then we said, "No, we'll go at half time and watch the second half." I've never seen the first team playing yet, so that's the way that used to go.
Andy, always a pleasure having you on, my friend. Thanks for coming on. Same question to you. What's the most pissed you've ever been at a Rangers game?
Well, again, mine's is very boring. I've never been drunk at a Rangers game. I don't drink that much. I'm a young guy, but I don't drink. I got given a nice bottle of Moe for my 21st by my uncle, and I went, "What the fuck am I gonna do with that? I don't drink." I can link two stories. One of them is the closest, is when it was for Leipzig last year at Ibrox, and I was in Greece at the time, and I just found I was sitting in the hotel bar because it was the only place that had Wi-Fi, and I kid you not, when Lundstrom scored that goal, I ran up and down the bar, I did laps at that bar, my Rangers top, and I took a scarf with me because I knew it was like, I'm going to be involved in this game. I don't care what's happened the rest of that day. That day's been chopped off. If it was a 5-night holiday, it was 4, because that day was chopped for Rangers. And I was swinging a scarf around. I can only imagine what other people were thinking, what the fuck's this guy doing? But that's the closest to drinking. Another one was, it's a deviation. It's when I was younger. And again, I only turned 21, so I've not had a lot of time to really get involved with drinks at football. But it's a story that I like to remember, because my dad used to always tell me about it. I had issues with my leg in the past when I was really young as a child, and in and out of hospital for surgeries and X-rays, the whole shebang. I think it started from when I was born to about 15. That was the whole kind of, everything had to deal with this issue. And one of the times I just had surgery to fix it, and it was Rangers versus Lyon in the Champions League, and this is 07-08. I had to look up to make sure I knew which one it was, and it was a 3-0 victory in France with McCulloch, Cousin and Beasley scoring. And I remember that specifically, that game. I can't remember who scored because I was still quite young. I remember it was a game we won in France against Lyon, and we wheeled a telly into my hospital room to watch it, and all my family that were coming up to see me after my surgery were like, "Aye, what's the score?" Aye, we're winning now, by the way. And I said, "Oh, that's great, man." And so I ended up, I don't think anyone spoke to me to ask how I was. We were too busy fixing on the game, going celebrating. Rangers is that way. It's a way of life, and it's I don't care. I'm watching the game. Have you got my get well soon card? I don't care. I'm watching the game.
What a game it was, to be fair, mate. I mind watching that. Cruzan, McCulloch and Beasley, I'm sure it was. Aye, cracking game. Something felt you felt that night that something special was going to happen, and I suppose it did with that run. But thanks for coming on, Andrew. Always a pleasure.
Cheers, mate. I'm loving it. Loving being on the podcast. It's great to speak to you guys and get questions from the Rangers faithful. You know, it's great. Loving it.
I know, and thank you to all the listeners. I'll finish off. There's probably more. There's probably some states through the journey, I like to call it. I don't really like the term the banter years because it was much more enjoyable getting tanked up before going to Ibrox instead of watching Sebastian Forey and Ian Black in the middle of the park.
That. I used to be allowed to drink at that point. I was 13, 14, 15, watching my beloved Rangers take on fucking East Stirling, of Edmondson Krabari at bat, or John Daly up front. You know, I didn't have the crutch of being able to get tanked up before or after the game.
But mine's actually comes a couple of years before. I think it was the 2011 season. I just turned 18 and I was out every weekend, every weeknight as well as a student. It was class. That student loan money went behind many a bar. So night before 12 o'clock Old Firm game at Ibrox, and I've went out to, I don't know, I've ended up in Annie's Land, some party after the dancing. So dancing 8 o'clock, some after like 5, 6 o'clock. Went to my pal's house after that, going to the game, just kept going right all the way through, and then meet up with my dad at Ibrox for the game. And I think I've said a few times in this pod before, anytime I get hungover, I like a good emotional hangover, a good greet at some sort of chick flick. So I've got to the stage I've not been drinking for 2 years, and I'm sobering up without sleeping and alcohol starting to wear off. And Penny Arcade comes on, I just see Walter Smith, and I don't know what it was. He came out and clapped, and I just started bubbling, absolute tears streaming down my face. My dad turns around, what's wrong? I'm like, I don't feel well, Dad. Just leave me. I'll be all right. I've got a cold. Fucking middle of August or something. Sun splitting the skies. And there's me, just an emotional wreck. I just couldn't contain myself, man. I still get a bit overwhelmed when I hear Penny Arcade now. So, that was that's probably the worst day I've been in at a Rangers game, and heaven knows what was yet to come in the coming years. But that'll do us for this evening. A massive thank you to all the listeners and the subscribers. Obviously, Cammy supported the pod throughout the night again with that donation. A massive thank you. We do appreciate people willing to support the pod for what we're trying to do. I can't thank you enough. So I'll be back with you tomorrow morning for the news if you are up for it. If not, we'll be back with a live stream on Sunday night 8:30. So until then, have a cracking weekend, folks. Take care. We are the people.